Hello and welcome. This is Kunjo Carl. I've got a fun one for you today. First quarter of the speed run here in the flesh. The objective is to get a flag on every body as fast as possible, starting from scratch in a new save. And here we go, sprinting out of the starting blocks. Right now we're trying to get from Mystery Goo Tech on up to the thermometer and barometer. And we'll use those to get the Sci Bay, and with that in hand, we'll rock on up to High Kerbal Orbit and get our first big stash of science and funds. It's all going to start from here, though. So what you can see is we're just gathering our first little bit. This is all going in real time, and I've had an opportunity to practice this first bit quite a bit, so you can see it's pretty quick going along. So why would you do this kind of thing? Well, it's pretty fun, I got to admit it. It gives you an opportunity to look at all the normally easy things of Kerbal Space Program in a very different way. How do you do it fast? And gives you kind of a fun excuse in order to really hone in on your piloting skills. All right, so we finally got that thermometer and barometer, and this is where things really start to accelerate. With each of these missions coming through, we're going to be able to pick up science about 3 times faster than before. So what you'll notice is we kind of don't pick up all the science we can, just getting a little bit, just enough to get on to that next stretch of the journey. All right, here we go. So the last one picked up 22 science. This one's going to pick up, oh, I don't remember, a lot. And that's cute. Anyways, so these are all launching versions of these ships. These ships can be made as rollers as well. And Boeing actually brought that to my attention. The roller versions of these ships are a little bit faster, probably about 10 seconds faster, because you don't have to wait for them to land on the ground. The downside is they're a little bit trickier to run in person. With practice, though, they'd look really awesome. Maybe someday I'll do that. Hey, now we've got the Science Bay. In the original speedrun, that Science Bay, we got right off the bat, and it was made things very fast. Now we have to work a little bit harder for it, but it was worth the wait. The ship is going to use 5 of them in order to get everything we need to make a really powerful rocket to launch us up into high Kerbal orbit. Now, at this point, we're not going to bother with any of the liquid rockets. We're just going to do this with solid rocket boosters. And it makes this first bit a little awkward, I got to admit. But it all works out well, as long as you kind of build this part consistently. Now you'll notice I've actually already opened up one of those science bays, and that makes this part here a little bit quicker. This is a glitchless run through Kerbal Space Program. So we're actually avoiding glitches as we go. And one of the glitches is if you take science from a science bay while you're on the launch pad, and then you launch, it gets science from over on the shores. A little glitch. Now this is great because it actually gives you a lot more science than you can otherwise get, but it's a glitch. Can't take advantage of it. So that's why it does that. Okay, you'll notice the crumple zone technique of slowing down right there. What's coming up next? We're going to get basic rocketry and nose cones. We spent so much time and effort just to get nose cones, but version 1.2.2, you do what you got to. Okay, let's take a look at this. One of the things you'll notice is we're actually reusing huge portions of the rocket here, and this really helps to save on the build time. This same command pod that we started with on the very first rocket is actually going to go all the way through to the end of this 40-minute long segment. Get lots of nice fuel there, a little bit of extra science for our trip, and finally our very first liquid rocket. Now, depending upon where you're seeing this, you might be hearing the music in the background. If you're seeing this in the forums, you'll be hearing some chip tunes, and these are actually what I listen to. This is actually what you would hear on my computer while I'm playing this. I use it in order to help time myself through. It lets me know how fast I should be playing. You know, if I'm ahead of the game, take it nice and slow and easy. avoid risks. If I'm a little behind, shoot forward. Right now, this is on a very brisk pace, so I'm having a good time on this one. Up we go. One of the tricks about these rockets is we're launching right on up to orbit. We're going at 3x phys warp the whole time. While we have the ability to use rigid joints, they take a long time to put in, so we avoid them. And at 3x phys warp, non-rigid joints, oh, they're very floppy. So building rockets that are aerodynamically stable and to handle going up at this sort of speed is really a challenge. But it's a fun one, and this one does it quite well. All right, APWAP's nice and high. Gathering all the science. This is our second round of science. And the first look at gathering science in a very long string of missions to come. Oh, hello. Don't mind me. All right. So, hey, little guy. Okay, so right now we're gathering the science up in high orbit, and this will be everything we need in order to make a really powerful moon rocket here to come. The other thing is, this is going to set us up for a long line of story missions, which will get us plenty of money for the missions incoming. Right now we're heading back to the Space Center. What we can do now is we finally made enough money to really start developing the facilities of the Space Center. First thing we're going to grab, probably the most important, is the astronaut complex. That gives us the ability to hop out of the spaceship and gather EVA data. And when we do that, it also opens up the story mission we just grabbed, which will get us our first pile of funds. Take that EVA report, already got it, flip around and head back home. Now, what we could do at this point is actually burn, oh, and I actually do it in this one, burn all of that fuel and just head down as fast as possible. Oh, this makes me nervous later on. Re-entering at high phys warps when you have a very vertical trajectory like this is kind of dangerous. But it looked like, yeah, it looked like I went for it. We got that heat shield on there, but the problem is there's actually a few glitches in the game which make it rock extra hard while you're at high phys warps, and it can burn your craft even if you've got the that heat shield on there. Little moment of quiet here. Made it in time for the next song. And here comes the next section for the moon. So what you'll notice is there's a little clip there. I went ahead and paused it, started up a new one for the moon. And you'll notice there's going to be a clip halfway through where I decide to start running it again. Okay, so right off the bat, we get a lucky grab there. It can actually take a long time to get that first mission. So one of the tricks is KSP can give you all manners of story missions, and those are the ones like, go to the moon, land on the moon, that kind of stuff. One of the ones it can give you is rendezvous in orbit, rendezvous vessels around the moon, and those are, of course, really hard to do in a speed run, so we got to avoid them. So KSP can give you all kinds of those missions right now. In fact, about 2 out of 3 missions we see are going to be those. And so we got really lucky. Didn't get those right off the bat. It's pretty quick to get the mission you want, but you want to get running as fast as possible. Okay, here we go building the moon rocket. Right on down. For this rocket, we're going to need a whole bunch of Delta V, and it's going to need to be able to land on wherever we happen to want to land on the moon. We're not going to be picking our landing zone very carefully. So it's going to need both of those things. This is going to use a lot of our newfound tech, including the skipper. That's going to be the main thing that'll push it up to orbit. We do have access to other things as well, including the my very favorite, the kickback. But we'll be avoiding it for right now. The skippers are more than powerful enough for this mission. All the nose cones, need some of those. And you might have, oh, and batteries as well, so it'll be a prolonged mission. The other thing you'll notice is, oh, yep, and here comes the nice squishy landing legs, so we can land at high speed on any all section of the moon. The other thing you'll notice is we put in a extra Oh, and this will be for our return trajectory. It makes it really awkward during the launch having those extra fins up there, but those extra fins make the re-entry at the end of the mission a lot easier. You'll also notice that I got things a little off kilter. That'll come a little later, come into play a little later on. It's not quite rectilinear, not quite lined up, but it winds up working out fine as long as you get everything at right angles to each other. We're going to be bringing Val along with us for this. Pilot training is actually a very important aspect of the long run of the speed run because you really need to have all the all those different pilot SAS abilities, and this gives it to us as long as you develop those pilots nicely. Okay, here comes the next part. Oh, I'm trying to figure out why am I not able to move around all these things doing the staging right now. When I get more skilled at something, I'll actually do the staging during the mission. That makes it a little bit quicker, but for right now, taking a little bit more easy doing the staging right now. And have I already done the? I guess I have. I totally missed. I made little command where you action groups. That's the one for a lot of the sciences. Up we go. Oh right. First we got to line up with the moon. We're just going to do this by eye. About 35 degrees in front is what I like. A little longer than you would normally do. And this is the point where I really start quick saving a lot. It's very easy to have little mishaps from here on. And during an actual speed run, those mishaps show up pretty often, and it's good to be able to reload in order to get around it. Up, 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 up. See if I catch it on this one. I do. I catch it a little bit too well, actually. Give it a little bit more, and this will be more than close enough to the moon. We don't want to hit it, of course. We just want a medium altitude flyby for now. Bonk. And this is very easy to fly past. I can't tell you how many times I've needed to reload because I flew right past the moon. One of the things that doesn't appear here is handling the time warps in a mission like this is actually very difficult. Oh, and I got it too close. That's okay. We'll fix it. So for right now, what we're actually going to be doing is I call this poisoning story missions. So if you accomplish the objective of a story mission, like land on the moon, before you actually get the mission, it won't ever appear. And right now, the one that we're poisoning is orbiting the moon and EVA in orbit of the moon. The reason we're doing that is those are very difficult missions to get on purpose. And if we just do them right now, then we don't have to worry about them. They get knocked out of the way. And the next one we're going to see is going to be land on the moon. And that one is worth a lot more money. So we'll go for it. You'll see a little glitch right there as I switch from one play to another. I didn't quite see what mission I picked up there. Well, when I'm in the zone on this, I read very quickly. So I see here is this one's land on and a single return mission. Did I take it? I decided to take it. Okay, this is not a very lucrative mission, and what that means is I need to make up some money later on. And that money will get made up during the Minmus mission coming up pretty soon here. Okay. Oh, hey, okay. I'm seeing how I'm doing it now. That's a good way. So because I did all the time warping from the tracking station there, it didn't matter what my altitudes were. Normally you have to really manage the altitudes of your orbit well in order to keep your ability to time warp high. But in this case, because I decided to do all the time warping from the tracking station, I didn't have to worry about that. Cool, so I didn't have to correct my my low periapsis there. On down we go. So this is always a trick. What I was doing right there, that little pause, was eyeballing where we're going to be landing. You want to land on somewhere flat, and so while we're falling down during this section, I just kind of made sure that we're going for that little spot there between the craters. That's normally some nice flat ground, in between, like right in between a pair of craters. So we'll see, you're just going to go a little bit to the north of this one. This winds up being a little bit of a folly, a zone that I choose that looks from orbit that'll be like a very nice place to land winds up being pretty terrible. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of lining it up. I'm taking this part slow and easy. When you go fast for a little while, like I've been doing right now, you know, you get a little bit antsy. I'm just doing this nice and slow. Okay, taking it easy. I'm like, wait a minute, what's the ground doing here? The ground is really extra low, so what I do is I launch the bottom part of my ship and I use that as a honk, as a little meter stick, just to really see where that distance is. And when I land on the ground here, I actually make a mistake. I push the wrong button to try to right my craft upwards. So this is where those extra landing legs come into play. I actually get to use them. A little bit of breakdancing on the ground, and then pushing hard against it puts us upright. It can't torque itself off the ground upright going uphill, so that's what that breakdance is for. And you really can't do that without those extra landing legs. You really can't pull yourself off the surface without those extra landing legs. So hey, lucky I put them in. All right, so this is Val's opportunity to plant the flags and run all this stuff. The other thing is, in this case, we had the opportunity to upgrade the science facility. Oh, and do this nice and slow. Get it in there easy. Cool. If you miss it, it takes forever to fly at that, to fly at the command pod. Okay, and here we go for a return trip. Am I going to ditch those? There they go. In this case, we had the opportunity to upgrade the science facility before landing on the moon, and that was actually pretty important. In this version of KSP, there's a glitch where if you're standing on a planet and you upgrade the science facility, then it gets rid of the flag in your inventory. And actually, when I mentioned this to Bewing, one of the squad Q&A, he said, no problem. He went and put it on the docket and got rid of it for the new version of KSP. So I am looking forward to that. Okay, here we come re-entering. Wow, that's fast. So this part here has me really... Whoa! So if you're familiar with the Soyuz, they always launch their extra stuff upwards so that it doesn't hit them on the way down. It's a little scary. I wasn't thinking about that. I launched it behind me and it nearly clipped me on the way down. I've definitely had that ruin a run or two. So happy that didn't turn out as bad as it could have. Very exciting though. So what you'll notice here is I did that a lot slower than I needed to, and we have those extra fins. When you're re-entering at high speeds from high time warps, there's plenty of opportunity for KSP to singe your craft and explode it. So happy that didn't happen here. Went through a lot of trouble getting the arrow on the way up, putting extra fins in order to get those fins for us on our way back down. Normally, you'd never want to put fins at the top of your craft up near your pod, because those are tricky to balance your arrow for. In this case, it was totally worth it, because we get nice, clean re-entries every time. All right. Right there is upgrading the final piece of our facility, or at least I thought so. I think I missed one. And we're getting all the science that we're going to want for our Minmus trip. Now, this Minmus trip is actually going to be kind of a prolonged one. It's going to involve hopping across 5 different biomes in order to get lots of science for the rest of the speedrun. Sorry about blinking a lot there. The only way to get these... Wow, that was quick. I got lucky on these. The only way to really get these better missions is to wait and wait when we have the opportunities to, for bad missions to go away, for new ones to crop up. And that waiting involves that blinking there. So sorry about that. You'll see a lot of extra craft in there. This is also the file that I was practicing on. So you'll see just the versions that I was doing as I was getting the craft better and better during the final phase of polishing, and as I was just practicing building them a few times. Now this one I've only practiced building, I think, three times at this point, so I'm not the quickest at it yet. I think you're going to slow down from breakneck here to a little bit more calm. So one of the tricky parts here is we want a lot of science in this on. I'll talk about the lifting section first. So I believe this one also avoids the um, this one avoids the kickbacks, one of my very favorite engines, in favor of the twin bores, my second favorite engine. And the twin bores are nice here because they're very easy to balance them correctly. You just toss these few big old wings on them, and your arrow's all taken care of. Beautiful. We're already done. The staging is a cinch. I really like them for that. If I missed some science on that moon mission, maybe I forgot to pick something up, that happens. And the fallback plan here would be to use much lower tech kickbacks in order to get all the rocket to work out on the way up. Okay, ditching those old legs, we'll be giving ourselves some new ones pretty soon here, and you'll see all the science we're going to try to grab. I've got 8 versions of all of our experiments. And what we could do in this case instead is use a scientist in just one of them. But you know what? Launching big heavy rockets is kind of a specialty of mine, so it's no problem at all just bringing along a lot of extra stuff. We also want this craft because it has to land 6 times to be very quick and maneuverable despite its size. And that's what you're going to see all this stuff in here for. We've got 8, count them 8, of the reaction wheels. That'll help us to keep nice and vertical, despite the SAS not being able to keep up a lot of times when we're at high fizz warps. We're also going to be using a whole bunch of these Werner engines. These are very expensive, so all that extra money that we were picking up on that moon mission really comes into play here. Now we're giving ourselves one of the SAS things, and we're actually getting this not because it gives us extra SAS abilities, but because it can maintain SAS even when we pop our nose out of the window to get the EVA airports. That's pretty important because otherwise SAS turns off every time we hop out, and it's really hard to remember to turn it back on every time. Very easy to crash otherwise. So that's just there so we can keep SAS on despite jumping in and out of the craft a lot. So in come my very favorite landing legs. Oh, well, besides empty fairings, which are kind of glitchy and OP. These are the airplane wheels. And when you close them, they actually launch very nicely on the way up. They have good aerodynamic properties. And what's best about them is they have a lot of squish, and you can hit them against the ground very hard, even in high fizz warps, and they can handle it. It took me a long time to figure out what kind of wheels, what kind of landing legs are going to be the best. And once I discovered these, the world really kind of opened up. I got to make all my craft a lot faster and work a lot better. Before this, I was using regular landing legs, and for those, kind of all 3 of the different large normal landing legs kind of work about the same as each other. So I was using the small and the medium ones. I was getting some help from the KSP help forums, and thank you very much, everybody who gave me a hand there. Ursus, in particular, gave some very good advice, which is to make your craft really broad and flat. And with the standard landing legs, that was absolutely critical. Also, making it wide and not long was kind of a critical piece of that. The other thing that Ursa said that helped out was to use those Werner engines, to use SAS engines in order to RCS, I should call them engines, in order to help out. There you go. I realized that I forgot to get this upgrade, so we have to wait through an extra loading screen. So Ursus gave that suggestion, and it really made the craft a lot faster than trying to do it with a normal craft where you'd have to launch and then tilt in order to get some lateral velocity. This one just goes straight up and burn right from there. Very nice. Yep, waiting through this loading screen. Oh, and here's a glitch that's on my system. I don't know if it's a normal one. If I Alt-Tab out of KSP, which I happened to in this case between the missions, then it'll occasionally give that blank screen. Just got to reload. Okay, line on up with Minmus. Right now I'm actually trying to find Minmus. I didn't see it at first. And same kind of idea as the moon, just eyeball it about 30 degrees or whatever this is in front. I don't actually know how many degrees it is. I just make it look right. Right now I'm eyeballing the I'm eyeballing the inclination of Minmus, and it's a little bit north of the moon, which is perfectly flat. So what I'm doing right there is you'll notice I give myself just a little bit of northern inclination on this launch, and that's going to come in and just kind of make sure that things all line up nice and easy as we go up. If I get everything well enough, and in this case I did, then we can actually hit Minmus SOI without without trying hard. And that's kind of what's fun about speedrunning is it forces you to learn ways to do things without trying that hard because you got to be able to do all this nice and quick. And so it's a lot of fun learning ways to do things nice and easy. Okay, toodle 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 boop. Got it. Let's see where we are. A little bit south. So we're just going to burn a little bit north, and as we do that, um, a little bit down as well, and that'll bring it on up. So the reason a little bit down as well is otherwise it makes you go faster, and that makes you get there a little bit too soon. I burned down a little bit too much. There it is. Okay. On up we go to Minmus. This leg of the mission is really fun for me because it involves um, a lot of real high dexterity flying, which I super appreciate. What I'm going to do right now is you'll notice I'm going a little too far south, so we're just going to take care of that. It's really important, especially when speed running, to take time at certain points in order to get everything lined up nice. It'll save so much time in the long run just to take it nice and easy, get everything lined up for the trip on in. Now, as bad as time warping into the moon is, time warping into Minmus is one of the hardest. I always go flying past that periapsis. All right, just gonna collect all the signs we can along the way. You'll notice that the craft is kind of twisting a little bit as soon as Valentina hops outside of it, and that's kind of a little glitch we have where if you're using fizz warp while you're maneuvering, you wind up collecting some weird trim, and that trim only comes into play when you hop out of your craft. So you'll see that my craft tend to pop around a lot when I pop out of them, and I'm always correcting my trim in order to counteract that. Okay, just taking my time getting this nice and circular. That's important for some time warping we're going to be doing in a moment here, where we really choose our landing site carefully. All right, and I notice I'm actually already lined up super perfect just to catch that landing site. Uh, I don't know if you can, no, you won't be able to see my mouse on this. So what you can see there is there's a little tiny spot of, hey, I pointed my mouse at it right there. That's where we're going. And in order to get there, we're going to put ourselves just a little bit in front because Minmus is going to be rotating underneath us as we land. So here we can get the science from low Minmus, and we don't need to get any of the EVA science, but do I do it anyways? I do. I forget about that a lot. And down we go. Oh, what am I doing here? Oh, that's right, turning on my SAS. I forgot about that in post. So one of the funny parts about this, we're going to be seeing this in just a moment here, is it's very easy to make a mistake. There is no such thing as a mistakeless speed run, and it's actually kind of the part of the fun. It really helps to drive up the tension. Is you've always got things kind of on a razor's edge as you're racing forward, and sometimes it doesn't work out according to plan. So we're going to see one of those mistakes right here, and I'm just going to roll with it. Anyways, while we're watching all of that going down, I'm going to give a couple of shout outs. One of them is to Bawing, who's helped me out a whole bunch just on various questions and tips and tricks putting this part of the speed run together. And the other is to Zendalar, who's kind of been an inspiration. Putting together a speedrun requires a lot of time and effort, and Zendalar's been doing something that requires a similar huge amount of effort. His 10% returns run of the career, and just seeing him, oh, crash! Just seeing him like pushing through that is part of what's kind of kept me moving forward on this. All right, reload. That's why we make quick saves. And down we go again for the second round of this. I kind of figure, part of watching speedruns is watching it for the crashes, right? It's like what people always say about watching car racing, the NASCAR and things like that. Of course, you never want the crashes, but people say you watch it for the crashes anyway. So perhaps that keeps it exciting, right? So yeah, what else is there to say about this? We're going to be collecting a lot of science during this, and that's actually going to be one of the biggest differences between this version of the speedrun and the one that I did back for version 1.05 is in this version we want more science. We want even more money. And the reason for that is back in the original version, I had it in mind to make a very low tech ship that was just one ship, could basically do pretty much everything. And that worked out great. It really did. But I wound up spending almost half of the time just doing little maneuvers, kind of like this one here. And this version of the speedrun, I'm going to be focusing a lot more on getting higher tech stuff. And using fewer ships to do more. And that's going to help reduce the number of tricky things I got to do, like namely landing. Landing's a lot easier when you got the right stuff for landing. And it's also going to make there be fewer ships we've got to bring back to Kerbin. The other thing is now this is going to be glitchless, and that's a change. The last one wasn't glitchless. Coming up from the south is kind of a different vantage point than I'm used to. The glitchless is going to make it be a lot more difficult. We're going to need more delta V and things like that. And collecting this extra science in this leg of the mission is what's going to do that. So despite, really needing to take some extra time in order to find this tricky little spot right here, which has got all the science in it, it makes a lot of difference. The other thing is in the original version, there is one beautiful little spot which had, what was it, 4 or 5 biomes all right next to each other. Now they're a little bit more spread out. So this is a new one. And by the way, this is a great little place for anyone just running a normal Minmus mission. This little spot here has got a lot of biomes all packed close together. It's got some nice even slopes on the way down. So very, very lovely place to be collecting your science. Is that enough patter? Looks like we're on our way down for the last part. One of the notes before we start running all these different segments is that I do this much more slowly than I could. You'll notice if you're seeing this in the posts in the forum, there's another version of this where I absolutely race through the section of landing across the different biomes. In this one, I'm going to be taking a little bit more slowly. And the reason for that is just by this point, I'm a little bit more fatigued. I'm a little bit more nervous because I just crashed. So I'm just going to take it a little more easy. But it's pretty quick all the same. Haven't turned on my time warp yet, but we'll get there. Okay, start gathering that science. Every biome we land at, it's going to be the same things we've been collecting up until now. There's a materials bay. There's a mystery goo. I've got the surface sample that we'll collect from right there and the EVA sample from the bottom. One thing that you probably didn't see there is I collected the... Oh, those are some of the ones I must have missed. I missed science, I noticed later, and it looks like I missed gathering the thermometer barometer science and crew report science. That's okay. This leg actually has extra science built into the mission that we're not going to need in the long run. And that's really important because inevitably, if you're taking 1,000 experiments, well, what do I take? Probably 150 experiments over the course of this beginning thing. You're going to miss one or two. So there's the one or two that I just missed right there. All right, gathering all of them for here. And because we've got action groups for the barometer, thermometer stuff, those go nice and quick, gathering those. There they go. Pop off the surface a little ways. Snag the EVA report from the air over this and onto the next spot. We're going to be going down to just in front of that little Minthane Lake, or normal people don't call it Minthane, whatever you call that. Minty, glassy stuff. You'll see that our velocity is actually really quick right there, almost 100 meters per second. We're just going to bleed all that off, and you'll see how nice and quick and easy all this is with all those Werner engines pushing us around. Bonk! And you'll notice we didn't bounce very much despite hitting the ground really hard there. That we get from turning way down the spring on the landing legs and turning way up the, what do you call that? The damper. That's a wonderful little trick. Works out great. Those little landing legs are really wonderful because they don't explode even, and I mentioned this, they don't explode even when you hit the ground really fast. So as long as they can soak up the energy of that landing, which they do with the damper, you're good to go. So just turn that damper all the way up and really enjoy it. Even still, you'll notice when I hit the ground, I do a little extra push in order to hold it down. Okay, this is biome number 4. Watching it in post, boy, this stuff's going quick. And one final biome coming up pretty soon here. And planting the flag. So normally at this point, if I hadn't got that really wonderful Minmus mission, at this point what I would do is, actually it would have been back in orbit. I would have gone for one more Minmus mission in order to make up for the stuff that we had lost back at lost back at the moon for taking kind of a chumpsy mission there. Fortunately, everything, the Minmus mission we got was fantastic. So don't have to worry about any of that. Just run straight on through. And taking pretty much the last stuff. And right now I'm just kind of running through the last mental tally. Have I got everything? I think I got everything. Doing a little bit of breakdancing there. I love that dance that you can get instead of that actually is a little glitch, but it's not a big deal. Oh, and I don't show it off in this version. That's too bad. One of the shout outs I wanted to give, and a huge shout out for this, is to Crater Cracker for making the flags for this mission. Thank you so much, Crater Cracker, for making the flags. I'm using this. Oh, you can kind of see it out of the corner of your eye. Of course, the whole point of this thing is running around putting flags on here. Spend a lot of time and effort doing this. When you're in the moment, it feels very important. You got to get that flag down on the surface. And so having those special flags for this was really cool. He made some wonderful flags for it. Special. What am I trying to say? It's got all the planets on there, so kind of a good set piece. I'll edit into the very beginning of this. Into the very beginning of all of the this video, a copy of it. Ooh, I'm starting to get fatigued from talking. This is the scariest of all the reentries because it has the most energy to it. And one of the hard things about it is trying to get it so that you re-enter straight from the surface of Minmus. If you don't get your angle on the surface of Minmus just right, you actually have to wait and do a second little maneuver. In this case, I got it. So, hey! And down we go. You'll notice I launched it behind me again. Oh, no, to the side this time. That's good. And quick saving just because this is a little bit nerve-wracking. So one more thing I wanted to mention about all this, which is despite all this stuff being very involved, speedrunning is actually super easy to get into. You just take whatever it is in KSP that's hardest for you and do it a whole bunch of times until you're quite good at it. What should I say? It's not actually about doing it a bunch of times. It's about thinking about all the different ways you can do to make it super easy. And then the repetition goes by quick. So for each of these things, I probably only repeated them maybe 6 or 7 times. And when it goes by this fast, that's not that long. It all goes by as long as a lot of people spend. I spent way more time putting together the ideas for this than I spent practicing running it. And that's kind of the point, is it gives you something fun to put together ideas for. It gives you something very different in order to plan out. And that's kind of neat. So if you're looking for something new, something novel, something to really test your abilities as a pilot and test your abilities at building ships, I'd say speedrunning is definitely a way to go. All right, and this is just kind of an epilogue right now. I'm just kind of showing off some of the things that we're going to do. One of them is pick up some extra pilots. Of course, pilot management's really important in the long run. The other is getting all of these tasty, tasty sciences. I think I missed a couple of them. That's okay. These are all the sciences we'll be using in the long run. So please look forward to that science getting used. The next leg of the journey I'm going to be doing is the one that I fear the most. Like I was saying, do something that's difficult for you. And what's difficult for me is lathe. You might have thought Eve, right? Of course, Eve is a very hard place to go, but lathe is the one I fear the most. I have become a flaming, smoldering wreck on lathe more times than I can count. That is a very difficult place to go. So the next leg of the mission is going to be lathe, and along with it, all of the wonderful places around Joule. Basically going to be running a Joule 5 mission in speedrun mode. Looking forward to it. So, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. By the way, if you enjoy this format of presentation, please let me know. It's quite easy to put together. Just the recording of gameplay with talking over it. Oh, and here's the last two sciences I missed. So yeah, let me know. Thanks again for watching.